Some of the most famous mountains on Earth don't just tower, they tilt. With slopes so steep, they have killed 1 in 3 climbers on their upper flanks. In the rush for fame and summits, modern expeditions spend $100,000 for a chance to survive what explorers once called suicide terrain. How did ambition reshape the world's most insanely steep mountains, and what price is still paid on their deadly ridges? In the late 1800s, the world's steepest peaks were not yet playgrounds for thrill-seekers. They were blank spaces on maps, drawing explorers with a mix of scientific curiosity and national pride. In 1865, Edward Whymper's team reached the top of the Matterhorn, a jagged summit in the Alps that had taunted climbers for decades. The victory came at a cost. 4 men died on the descent, their ropes snapping on the mountain's sheer ridges. This was not sport. It was a high-stakes gamble for knowledge and prestige. Across the Atlantic, a different kind of challenge waited. In 1913, a small group, led by Hudson Stuck, made the first ascent of Denali, North America's highest mountain. The climb unfolded over weeks, with supplies hauled by dog sled and local porters through frozen wilderness. The summit itself stood 6,190 meters above sea level, battered by storms and unpredictable cold. Unlike the massive Himalayan expeditions to come, Denali's ascent relied on efficiency and local knowledge, not armies of support. In the Himalayas, the scale was altogether different. Early expeditions in the 1920s and the 1930s set out to measure, map, and sometimes claim the world's highest mountains for their countries. These journeys mobilized hundreds of porters. 380 porters supported the 1922 attempt on Everest, and more than 485 were involved by 1936, each carrying loads up to 14 kilograms through weeks of relay camps. Supplies included everything from tents and food to early oxygen tanks and survey equipment, with more than 20 tons moved in stages up the mountain. Fatalities among porters and climbers were common, but rarely recorded with precision. These climbs were not about personal glory or guided adventure. They were logistical marathons, driven by the promise of discovery and the weight of national ambition. In the shadow of these early efforts, the world's steepest mountains remained wild, their dangers undiminished by human plans. The hardships faced then would shape every ascent that followed, setting the stage for the next era of high-altitude ambition. In June 1950, a French team stood atop Annapurna, the first humans to summit an 8,000-meter peak. The triumph came at a terrible price. Maurice Herzog, the expedition leader, recorded in his diary how the descent turned into a nightmare. Frostbite spread quickly, and fingers and toes blackened in the cold. With no painkillers, Herzog's companions used a pocket knife to amputate his dead flesh. He later wrote that his fingers fell off like gloves. The ordeal cost him all his fingers and toes, but the world saw only the victory. Newspapers called it a new age of heroism, an ascent for national honor, not personal glory. 3 years later, Everest fell to Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. Their ascent on May 29, 1953, was powered by new technology, lightweight gear, improved clothing, and bottled oxygen. The British expedition was massive, involving dozens of climbers and Sherpas, but the crucial breakthrough came near the summit where Hillary and Norgay used oxygen masks to push through the thin air. It was the first time the world's highest mountain had been climbed, and it was only possible because of these advances. These early conquests changed what mountains meant to the world. The peaks were no longer just blank spaces on a map. They became symbols of what humans could endure and what they were willing to sacrifice. The cost was measured in lost limbs, broken bodies, and lives left on the slopes. But the rewards, fame, national pride, and the feeling of standing above the world drew more climbers every year. Technology made the impossible seem just within reach, and with each new summit, ambition only grew. The stage was set for mountains to become destinations, not just for explorers, but for anyone bold enough to try. A new economy has taken root on the world's steepest mountains. Today, reaching the summit of Everest or Manaslu is not just a test of endurance, it is a transaction. Commercial operators offer guided climbs for prices ranging from $40,000 to $100,000 per person. That fee covers everything from government permits, which alone run about $11,000, to oxygen canisters, Sherpa support, and logistics. The Himalayan database tracks these numbers each year. In the 1980s, fewer than 50 climbers reached the top of Everest in a season. Now, more than 600 stand on the summit during a single spring window. This surge has turned base camps into bustling villages. Operators compete for clients, promising higher success rates and greater safety. But the mountain's hazards remain unchanged. Since records began, more than 330 climbers have died on Everest. Rescue is nearly impossible above 8,000 meters, where helicopters struggle and human strength fades. Even with satellite forecasts and fixed ropes, a sudden storm or avalanche can still end a life in minutes. The risks are even starker on Annapurna 1. The mountain's steep, avalanche-prone faces have produced a fatality rate of nearly 1 in 3 summit attempts, 72 deaths for just 191 summits as of recent counts. Guides and technology have improved survival odds, but the numbers reveal a stubborn truth. On Annapurna, the odds of dying are higher than anywhere else in the high Himalaya. Commercialization has brought crowds and profits to the world's highest peaks, but it has not erased the dangers. The steepest mountains still demand a price. The question is no longer who can afford to climb, but what is truly at stake each time a new season begins. Reinhold Messner stands alone in grainy archival footage, his voice flat and unsparing. He calls the modern Everest an illusion, a place where money replaces skill and crowds trust in fixed ropes instead of judgment. He says, "The mountain has not changed. Climbers have." Messner's words land against a backdrop of recent seasons. Lines of climbers inch up the Hillary step. Oxygen masks fog in the cold. He points to the surge of summit certificates and the thinning line between ambition and recklessness. But on the ground, the story is more complicated. Veteran Nepali guides like Mingma Sherpa argue that guiding has made the mountains safer, not more dangerous. Numbers from the Himalayan database show a drop in per-climber fatalities on Everest, from 4% in the 1980s to less than 1% today. Mingma credits fixed ropes, satellite weather forecasts, and the hard-earned knowledge of local teams. He says, "We train clients, we manage risk. Without us, more would die." Pakistani officials echo this, noting that improved logistics have cut deaths on K2 and Nanga Parbat, even as client numbers climb. For many guides, democratization is not a dirty word. It is a way to share the mountain and build local economies. Yet the mountains themselves are changing in ways no guide can control. A climate scientist standing beside a glacier retreating by meters each year holds up drone scans showing Annapurna's French ridge thinning by nearly 30% since 2010. Rockfall incidents on classic routes are up 40%. The South Col on Everest has lost 15 meters of ice in 2 decades, pulling fixed ropes taut over bare rock. Some routes, once considered stable, are now closed each season due to avalanche risk. Officials in Nepal and Pakistan debate new policies, including stricter permit requirements, seasonal summit caps, and mandatory waste removal. But as demand rises, the gap between regulation and reality widens. The future of climbing on these mountains may depend less on human ambition and more on the unpredictable forces of a warming world. The rope is fraying, and no one is certain how long it will hold. As climate change accelerates and demand for adventure grows, the world's steepest mountains become less predictable and more perilous. Technology may open routes, but risk remains absolute. Today, every ascent tests not just human ambition, but